Okay, got the Texas Longhorns coming to Morgantown this weekend. I know there's going to be a lot of excitement surrounding this game, as there should be with every Big 12 football game. Obviously excited about the night game after having so many day games in Morgantown. Our guys are going to be pretty excited about the atmosphere that's going to be in Morgantown Saturday night. Going to be good for not only the fans and the players, but WVU and all of Morgantown and West Virginia. So coming in on a roll, that we know that they've won the last 5. Can talk about their early season struggles if you want, but what I do is I look at the last game that they played and then go backwards from there to show what kind of improvement that they've made and how their team has changed, and to try to get a beat on what they're doing on all 3 sides of the ball. So they're playing with a lot of energy. Coach Brown's done a great job of rallying the troops and getting those guys playing at a very high level. They got a lot of energy. They got a lot of excitement. You can see the excitement on tape that they're playing well together and playing with a bunch of confidence. So I've won some big games here recently, which will be a challenge to not only our players but our coaches as well. So offensively, they've kind of settled into who they are. They're a physical team, probably the most physical team that we've played up until this point. They got a lot of bodies, a lot of depth. They've been preparing for obviously Big 12 football for quite some time, but they've settled in on their quarterback with McCoy. They like 9 other teams in the Big 12 have had quarterback issues like ourselves, whether because of injuries or productivity or whatever it is. They've settled in with McCoy, and he's getting better with each snap that he takes. So they'll rely on him just to run the offense. They're good up front. They got 3 running backs that are all capable of being the guy. Jonathan Gray is really a good football player. Receiver-wise, you can say, well, they got Shipley, they got Davis, but they got 6 other guys that are productive as well, and have all made plays. And seeing that TCU game, I studied their offense a week ago, preparing for TCU's defense. And what you saw in that is them developing the run, did a good job in the run game, but then taking shots downfield. And every single time they took a shot downfield, it was a different number catching the ball. So it's not like they got one guy that they're just going to go to. You got to cover them all. And they're all capable of making plays downfield. So they got lots of depth, lots of skill, and playing pretty good. Defensively, after the change in week 2, you don't think they've changed their scheme too much. You can't do that, within a week or 2. They've changed what they've done a little bit in the back end. They're going to play a lot of man coverage. When Coach Robinson was there, before he took the Syracuse job, I was at Tech, so we went against each other a good bit then as well, and it resembles and reminds me of what he was doing back when he was at Texas earlier. They got a lot of experience on defense, mainly the same guys that we played against last year, minus a D end and a nickel guy that were 2 really good players. They got everybody back. They're fast, they can cover, they're talented, they're big up front. They run well. They rush the quarterback well. Same type guys. So we know what we're getting ourselves into. They're doing a little bit different stuff that we recognize. But the biggest thing is with the unit is they're playing harder. They're playing more physical. They're playing with great effort. If you get a talented group of kids that do that, which it's happening on all 3 sides of the ball for them, puts them in position to be able to win some games. Special teams, they're sound. Coach Akeen has been there for a long time. Real sound, real similar to a TCU type special teams unit, to a Kansas State type special teams unit, where they're sound in all areas. We're going to have to be good once again in our coverage units, because those same guys that are returning punts or kicks are the same guys that are catching the balls downfield. So they're going to have good skill back there. They're going to pay attention to it. They're going to be well coached. They're going to be sound. The kicker's good. The transfer from Penn State, the Farrah kid, has only missed 1 all year, so they're good. And all phases of special teams will be a challenge for us as well. So Looking forward to it. It's going to be fun. I think you guys know that. It's going to be a good time. Our guys know it. We're going to be able to practice well this week. Not going to have to really motivate them too much. We're going to approach this week just like we did last week. We're going to try to get better. Just try to show improvement, try to get better. Keep trying to move forward to put ourselves in position to win. So with that, I'll take some questions.
You said the defense scheme didn't change much for them, but obviously something did. I mean, what have you seen differently out of that defense over the last 5 games, and is it really just as simple as a different mentality with it?
Yeah, they've simplified some things. I mean, they would get pretty crazy on third downs and get in some different fronts, and and much like we had to face last year. But when it comes right down to it, it's about getting off blocks and holding your gaps and playing with effort and being physical and making tackles, and they've improved on all those things. So the scheme, has it changed much? You can't change too much of it, or your guys get confused and then they don't play very hard. So what it looks like to me they've done is they've reduced what they've done. They've changed some things that he likes. They do a little bit more man coverage stuff, and but the biggest thing is getting your guys to get out there and just play without having to think too much, which is something every coach tries to accomplish.
Dan, I think it was last week you said that you reached a point in the season where you can't really change a whole lot about it, but because you found a quarterback that you like a little bit later in the season, you've shuffled receivers and offensive linemen, and it's like you're doing some different things now that you've found that. Are you stressing that little rule a little bit, or are we just seeing the same stuff just dressed differently?
I'd say that's pretty accurate. What you said at the end, we're just trying to show improvement. I mean, we got so many guys that hadn't played. I mean, we've went over this week in and week out. There's just so many guys that haven't played. You just got to keep trying to show improvement, and you need to have some success in order to build your confidence up a little bit in order to be productive. Which we've had our struggles with that, obviously. But to credit, and I have said this each and every week, that if we do have the proper frame of mind, the right attitude, the effort, to go out there and just try to keep practicing and try to keep playing, that eventually the continuity ought to get a little bit better, and it ought to work every now and then. So things are starting to come together. You can easily take a step back, just like you just took a step forward. So we got to get out. We got to practice all week. We got to keep building unity, keep building continuity and trust, and just try to show improvement. That's what's important to me, and we accomplished that last week.
Along that same line, do you think the team has found a personality, maybe match between run and pass and likes, which maybe Gino's team wouldn't have had?
Well, yeah, I mean, we our struggles last year were mainly because we couldn't run the ball very well. And going back, studying this tape on what we did against Texas last year, we ran the ball pretty good. Why that didn't carry over for a couple of games after that, I don't have an answer for you. About the time you have success and you pat guys on the back, then maybe that they want it to be easy the next week. So. But we were pretty physical against them last year. We ran the ball pretty good against them last year. Then the very next week we go to Texas Tech, and Bowie was banged up a little bit, and we could not run the ball, which was a problem. So I think we're running the ball pretty good. I think what Texas is trying to do offensively is pretty similar to what we're trying to do offensively. I don't think either one of us have a quarterback in the mindset up front where you can sit in the pocket for 4 seconds and go through 5 different reads. It's just we can't do that right now. I don't think they're equipped to do it as well. They've changed who they are and are not doing that very, very much. Both of us have the ability to be able to do it if we're not running the ball very well, which you got to do something if you're not. So, but we're gonna both try to establish the run. We're gonna both try to get that going, and then try to make plays downfield in the pass game.
Dan, it sounded like you thought your offensive line played one of its better games at TCU. But now that you've seen the film, do you think it was good, or what was their performance like?
Yeah, I just won't say that about the offensive line. We challenged them to be physical up front. We felt like we could be the more physical team up front. and we were. If you look at, offensively, we did, and they're hard to run the ball against. I mean, everybody knows that Charles had 150 yards. Gary hadn't allowed that to happen to a back, and since he's been there, but that has a lot to do with our offensive line coming off the ball. And I made Spain and Glowinski the players of the week because we did allow, we were pulling those guys a lot, and they were pretty physical. But and then defensively, I mean, we hit the quarterback 21 times. So and they averaged 2 yards a rush. So I think we won the battle up front on both sides of the ball, which is a winning performance. It's going to have to happen again this week. Last year when we played Texas, I think we won the game up front. Which we're not going to win the game with skill guys because they got bukus of them. And they're good up front on both sides of the ball. So that is going to be a challenge. But it's like that in any game you try to play. If you try to win the game up front, then if you do win the game up front, you got a chance to win the game.
And is it possible that this is one of the few times since you've been here against a quality opponent that you've won the line of scrimmage battle on both sides of the ball?
I don't know. I'd have to go back and think of that. That's obviously something that we're focused on, and if is it a result. Is it because we've won the game up front and won the game or lost the game? I don't know. I'd have to go back and look. I can't think about what happened prior to TCU, to be quite honest with you. But I was happy that happened. It needs to happen in order to win. I think everybody understands we don't have the skill guys right now to just dominate games like you've seen out of some of those guys. Hopefully we do towards the end of the year, next week, that sort of thing.
Speaking of skill guys, is Ronald Carswell a past member of this team?
Yeah, he's suspended indefinitely. We'll revisit this after the season.
Said that when it comes to scouting Texas, you start with their most recent game, go backwards, and see the improvement there. If you're doing that for yourselves, what do you see over the last few weeks? What do you like about the direction you guys are?
I would say improvement. I really would. On all three sides of the ball, I would see improvement. I'd see improvement from, last game to the previous game and all that, and your opponent has something to do with it. Everybody can say, well, you guys were playing at the highest level possible in defense. Well, I'd beg to differ on that. So I think we've shown improvement on all three sides of the ball. I think you're looking at a team that it means something to them to try to show improvement and to play with effort and to play with unity and to continue to try to grow. We're not going to win the Big 12. We understand that. So we're trying to get better and win the next game. And if it gets closer to we win this one, we go to a bowl game, or if we lose this one, we don't go to a bowl game, then we'll talk about that when it gets there. We're not at that point right now.
You spent a lot of time in Texas coaching. And what kind of advantage is it that Texas has? Not to belittle West Virginia, but it's got 2 million people in it. What kind of advantage does the football culture there give Texas?
Well, I guess when you're dealing with the University of Texas, it's the central figure of the whole state, which is extremely populated. Don't have to go very far to get recruits. I don't think we need to talk about how good their facilities are and what the resources that they have, the advantages and all that stuff. We don't need to talk about that. But the type of kid they're getting, the advantages that I've seen is these kids start playing, they start going to athletic period and learning football in 7th grade. They get an hour a day for an entire year to play football. They get 18 spring practices in the spring. It's crazy. You go out there and you go spring recruit, and you can go to an athletic period for an hour from 10:30 to 11:30 or from 8 to 9, whenever they have it. You can go in there and they're playing football, and then you come back after practice and they're practicing for 3 hours. And their numbers are huge. They got 3,000, 4,000, 5,000 kids in their schools a lot of the times. So their coaches are some of the best in the country on any level, and they're able to coach the kids. So you're getting a lot of development. Does that top them out before they get to college? I don't think so. I think it just gives them a lot of access and able to improve their skill and improve their craft.
The athletic period starts in 7th grade.
I thought it was 7th. It may be 9th. I know for a fact it's 9th. I think it's 7th and 8th.
How many days a week?
5.
5 days a week.
Yep. Oh, yeah. If they're a basketball guy, they go in there and they play basketball, or they may lift weights, or they may watch film, but they have an actual period where they come in there and they do whatever the coaches want them to do for an hour. My daughter's doing it now. She's in 8th grade. She's in 9th grade, and she's practicing basketball from 8 to 9, and then she goes and practices basketball after school. So a lot of time. A lot of time.
Any other injuries coming out of?
Doug Riggs' head's all preventing him from playing, so he's probably done. I know he's on the shelf for a couple of weeks, which last time I checked, a couple of weeks means the season's over. So, it's unfortunate. He was playing pretty good, and just he says he's not able to play. So he went in and played a couple of snaps last week and was in la-la land. So it's a serious subject, obviously. So he's out. Everybody else is, other than the 6 long-term guys that we've all talked about, we're all, Ford's making progress, but not ready to play. Making progress. Everybody else is day-to-day. We'll see how they practice this week to determine how many reps they can take. Guys like Worley and Ricky Rumpf and Dontrell Hyman. Kevin White went down with a little bit of an ankle. That's why he didn't finish the game. So it's that time of the year. You're going to have ankles and bruises and sore stuff here and there. So you got to fight through it, and you got to spend a lot of time in the training room, in the weight room, and get out there and practice.
How tough is that to see a guy like Doug who's put so much time into this program and now may not be able to experience his senior day and stuff like that?
Yeah, I mean, I feel bad for him. I mean, he's been productive for us this year. He's had the opportunity to play. I mean, look at it at the positive side. He had an opportunity to play football in the Big 12 his senior year. It didn't work out the way he wanted it to, but he tried.
What have some of those younger skill guys learned from Charles this year, seeing him practice every day?
A lot. You take, Wendell Smallwood does everything that Charles does, and Charles is such a good kid. He doesn't talk. You guys have figured that out. He doesn't say anything. He's got a presentation he's got to go do, and he's just petrified for it, But his attitude is so good, and the way he approaches every day in the weight room, in the film room, in the practice field, just playing with as much effort as he possibly can. Yes, that is rubbing off on a lot of the guys on our entire team. You see defensive guys pointing it out, So he's a special player, special kid. Glad he's here. It's worked out for everybody involved.
Talk a little bit about, you mentioned when you got here that when you put the system in each year, you go 3 times through it and people pick it up and that. Yet the intricacies of it, Trickett for most of this year was not able to get that you could run it. What, especially a coach's son who had played, a few years of college football, did that disappoint you that it didn't work out that way? Or,
with Clint?
Yeah.
No, because quarterbacks are different. It's a different animal. I mean, you gotta. And the one thing I said before I believe Oklahoma State was the first game he played. I mean, we're going to go with him. I don't know how he's going to do. I'm hoping he reacts to the game well, and he did. He reacts to the game of football well. It's frustrating for me. It's frustrating for him to not know exactly what we're talking about, because he hasn't had that time. And there's a lot of issues that we've had with him that are not going to get ironed out until a whole off season, is able to iron them out and be able to just, set in, have spring practice, watch cut-ups, learn from your mistakes. That a lot of that stuff's not going to happen until next year. But with that said, he played his best quarter of ball in the fourth quarter. It was his best quarter that he's had, and that was after a miserable third quarter. Because he doesn't get rattled, he reacts to the game of football, which is one thing that I love about him is he's trying, and he's reacting to the game, and he doesn't always understand what the heck we're talking about or where we want him to go with the ball or why this happens or why that happens, but he reacts good to the game of football, and he reacts good to coaching. So that was good enough this past week. We got to get probably 4 quarters of what he did in the fourth quarter in order for it to be good enough this week.
I know you promised to keep your hand out of the special teams, but what do you see from Josh Lambert this year?
Good. He's 6 for 6, right? So good. They special teams, I'm telling you, has been good for us now. I've had to sit up here in front of you guys and talk about that was a losing effort when it comes to special teams in the past. That hadn't been the case. Our coverage units were really good. Their kick return and punt return had been very productive, and we covered well. Nick didn't have his best game of the year. That last one, he kind of shanked it a little bit. Felt bad about it. But overall, I mean, we're doing well on covering punts, kicking and covering punts and kicks. The return game's not getting going the way we want it to. Didn't have a tremendous amount of opportunities last week, but it's not hurting us. And then the PAT field goal. I mean, shoot, you're 6 for 6 and you hit a game winner. That's winning effort.
13% so far this year, 50% above what you expected from him?
Yeah, 17 for 17 would be good. I really wish you'd quit asking me questions about the kicker now.
Danny, you said I'm trying to find it here, but something along the lines of you don't have the skill guys that dominate the game right now. That's a little bit different than what you've had in the past. Did you foresee that? Were you willing to give that a chance?
Well, yeah,
Change that, I guess, is understanding, all right, we don't have it, let's do.
Don't have it yet. I think we have guys there. I probably phrased that wrong. Haven't had guys develop yet. I'm very comfortable with the bodies that we have. They're going to develop. In the past, I've always been fortunate to have guys that have been developed, or developed them, and you lose guys and you plug guys in that have been developed for a year or two. We're just not there yet. We haven't had our hands on these specific guys long enough to develop them. That's the proper way to phrase that. They're doing good. Mario Alford, heck, he got in there and he made 3 huge catches. I mean, he's going to get better and better every single week. Nikhil Shorts had another big day. He's going to get better. Kevin didn't perform. He was getting covered by an All-American corner who's really good. So these guys are developing and they're going to continue to get better.
Okay, thanks, Coach.
All right, appreciate it.